Good evening, Jeff here with It's Not Your Fault. Welcome to my channel this evening. Again, if you haven't done so already, like and subscribe. Get those numbers up there a little bit, please. Remember, anytime we like or subscribe, it gets the content out to more people in the long run. So, long content out to more people. What does that do? It benefits more people, more help, more serenity in the long run. I'm here with a very special guest, a dear friend of mine. This is Susan. Hello, Susan.
Hey there.
And Susan and I had known each other for about 10 years.
That's right.
And we're both in a group together called AL-ANON. And AL-ANON, in case I haven't mentioned to it 1,000 times so far, is a group that helps people that have lived with or living with an alcoholic or addict. And that's how we got together, and that's how we met each other. And we've been doing this dance for a long time now. And sometimes it doesn't what you want it to. Sometimes it ends what you didn't expect. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. But thank you again for coming in. I appreciate it.
I love it. I'm so glad to be here.
This is wonderful. I have a couple prepared questions for us. But if any time during the video chat tonight, if you feel like you have a question for myself or Susan, just send it in the comments, and then I'll get with Susan and we can reply together, or she can go onto the comments and reply as well also. So not complicated. We'll figure this whole thing out as we go along. This is not MGM Studios here. This is the back of my office, and we'll wing it, okay? So going forward, first question I wanted to ask you, Susan, was can you share your perspective on the journey you went through with your son's addiction, from the initial stages to the devastating loss that you incurred?
Oh, yes, I can. I have to say, to start with, my son was a fantastic kid.
Yes.
He was wonderful. Loved outdoors, loved life, the whole thing. So
Good looking kid, too.
Yeah, he was. And so when he went to high school, he decided to hang around with some friends that I really didn't think that he should be hanging around. But by the time they go to high school, they have a mind of their own. I think the first time he used pot was my husband and I had gone to a Sunday school party, and we were back by 9:30. And he had those friends over. Well, we had really good neighbors, and they were watching at my house, and they weren't but about this far away from each other. So when we got home, he was high. Those guys had come over. They had brought alcohol, and my son was probably 16. So that being said, we were appalled because we didn't do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when his thing for pot started, because it made him feel so good. He was a little bit socially awkward, but very social in the same way. And so it started there, and it just perpetuated to...
And he was how old when he started?
16.
16. And of course, as we all talked about in the past, the marijuana that is available today is 19 times more powerful than the marijuana that I grew up around, and synthetically bred to be more powerful. So this is not just a puff and get high and move on with your life. This is some pretty powerful stuff nowadays. But go on.
That's exactly right. So me, being the mother that I was, and always the mother that I was going to fix all this. So
that's what we do.
I started dragging him to every psychologist, rehab, everything, everywhere. I mean, as a mother and a dad too, you want to fix whatever problem's wrong with your child. So I'm going to fix this, and you're going to go to rehab, and everything's going to be fine. So he did go to rehab. It was 28 days at Holmesview here in Greenville. He liked that for some reason. He was okay for 3 or 4 weeks, and then he wanted to go back and see his friends that were doing drugs, pills, whole 9 yards. And so by then, we lived in Malden initially, and we moved out of Malden to get away from those people.
Yeah.
And so we were living in Simpsonville when he got out of the first rehab. And so we said, we're not taking you over there. Okay, well, I'm walking then. Okay, have a nice walk. And so we let him walk. But so anyway, it perpetuated to harder things: crack cocaine, heroin, opioids. So we were still dragging him everywhere, but he did not like rehab, did not want to go. Everywhere we took him, he bailed. He would say, no, this is the one for me. Even somewhere had a lake, he loved to fish. Okay, you do this, and then you can go fishing, and everything's gonna be fine. I'd pack his little blankets, and I'd pack his little lunch, and everything to make it all good and all that. that never made it all good. So what I was doing, I mean, part of that you could say I was enabling. I was doing things for him at those points when he could have done them for himself, but either didn't want to or the disease was progressing. But we were taking him psychiatrist. He went to 1, 2, 3 rehabs, one in Georgia. He was on Suboxone and methadone because he would say, Mom, that's the only thing that's going to help me. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is it. Okay. Where's the bank? Where's the check? Let me check. So anyway, none of that worked. So we just kept on going. And finally, they say that the thing about insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, we expected a different result and we never got it. So my husband was the logical one. I was more emotional. I was the one running after him at 3 a.m. or running after him at wherever he was at all hours of the night or morning. And so we said, okay, we're done. I'm not buying any more bus tickets. I'm not giving any more money for Suboxone or methadone. He had already come off of that anyway. I'm not paying for any week-long motel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
He was living with a guy, and the guy was really not sweet, trying to survive on his own, but he wasn't a drug abuser, but Ryan was. And so we stopped. And that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, is to stop. We didn't stop talking to him, or we didn't stop loving him, but we stopped. He was selling the bus tickets. He was selling, we even bought food. We bought food for everybody. I mean, there's people I don't even know. But I had angels everywhere as well. People coming in that I never even knew to help. Oh, tons of people. And I credit that to God, because God was watching over him. God was watching over me.
Yes.
Because I couldn't have done it without God. And I will say that. So it kept going. And even after we had withdrawn the money and the stuff, the last time I was with him before he passed away was October 2022. And I'd gone to get him at this crazy place on White Horse Road. And he was sober. Mom, can you come get me? I got over here, but I have no way to get back. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll come get you. So anyway, it went from bad to worse. I went to get him. He was with these 2 dudes that looked, I keep thinking about him when he's in elementary school.
Yeah.
When you don't want why are you hanging around with those kids or whatever? So I kind of wondered, what in the world? So he gets in the car, says, just take me back to the motel where he and his friend were staying. And he does a line of, I don't know, cocaine, I guess, in my car. I'm driving home, or him back. And I'm thinking, holy moly, what have I done? So that was the last time I saw him alive. He overdosed on fentanyl at a place that was across the street from where they were staying in the motel. So.
And he was how old when he passed?
39.
39.
So you're talking a long time.
23 years.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Mm.
And I feel so bad for these people. AL-ANON was such a support for me. I poured my heart out to those people. Those people were the best people I've ever met in my life. I mean, it saved me and God.
And having a conversation with people that are going through a like situation like you're going through, it's one thing to tell somebody, at work or at church, your situation, your problems, but if they're not sharing the same situation that you're going through, a lot of times they'll offer advice that falls on deaf ears because, again, they're not walking the same walk you are. Or they're trying to fix it, or if that was my kid, or if that was my, well, it's not your kid. So just check yourself. Coming around people in a recovery group that are going through the same situations you are, that have walked the same walks and danced the same dances, we're all in step with each other. It's much easier. And that's why I strongly suggest that if you're going through a situation like we're discussing, please, there's help everywhere. Please find yourself a meeting, find yourself some support groups. And that's going to lead me to my next question. As a mother, you touched on this earlier, as a mother, what were the most challenging aspects of dealing with your son's substance abuse, both emotionally and practically?
He was my firstborn. So I learned how to be a mother with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were learning together. He was the baby and I was the mother, and I was trying to figure it out. So I had this special bond with him and of love that I can't even begin to describe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought then there's nothing ever going to happen to him. I cannot imagine anything happening to this child because I waited so long for it too.
Most challenging aspects of dealing with your son's substance abuse, both
yes.
emotionally and practically.
Oh, yes, sorry. So the most challenging thing was not to believe the lies because he was a very good manipulator. Even as a small child, he was good at it. He had a great smile, beautiful eyes. He could charm anybody. But when he started lying and saying things that weren't true to get us to do whatever he needed, give him money, take me here, somebody's going to kill me if you don't, that was challenging for me. The abuse of the verbal abuse, he never hit me, but he put holes through walls and, through my phone. I mean, tore things up when I wouldn't give him money. And he was never like that. It was all when he started abusing the drugs, and then the withdrawals would come in and everything would go bad. Another thing that was hard for me was letting go. I mean, I didn't let go initially
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't.
It's unnatural to tell your loved one that you've been raising your entire life, I'm done helping you. Figure it out on your own. That's not what we do as parents. As parents, we want to help because we're the only ones who can fix it. That's something that once we come to the conclusion that addiction is smarter than us, more cunning, it has no conscience. It will call you every name in the book. It'll steal from you. It'll rob from you. It'll make you lose everything that you have of material value, spiritual value. It'll make you feel like that you had your chest ripped out just because it wants to progress in its next use or its next hit or whatever. It's because of the fact that, again, it's a living animal that has no conscience and it will step on you. But that's not your loved one. Your loved one's still in there. It's trapped in there, but it's being manipulated by this horrible disease. And
That's
it is
exactly
a disease.
right. And that's what I had to come to terms with. It is a disease. But at the time, I had a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old and my husband at home. And so I couldn't allow that kind of behavior to go on with my young son sitting there watching it all, thinking that's the way it's supposed to be and that he gets to do whatever he wants.
Give us some thought. Again, the comments we can always talk about later on. We can pop in. But again, in case I haven't mentioned, this is probably going to be a 3-part series. We have a lot to cover. I might break this up in 3 30-minute videos. Second part of probably a 3-part series that we're going to cover tonight, talking about Susan's journey with Serenity and her son's recovery and ultimate loss. Welcome back, Susan. And we were talking earlier about challenging aspects of dealing with your son's substance abuse emotionally, and she covered emotionally, and then practically you wanted to unfold with that?
Yes, practically. My poor husband, he would say, why is there $1,000 missing from the checking account? I was writing checks to I don't even know who. Some guy on the phone said, yeah, you can bring him up here, and this is a addiction thing in North Carolina. And I said, when? Well, now if you have $1,000, okay, I have $1,000. So yes, I mean, we were going bankrupt, trying to get him here, $600 here, $1,000 here. Suboxone and methadone were expensive. Suboxone's expensive. The psychiatrist, $300, and I finally had to turn some of those psychiatrists in almost. I mean, they kind of write pills, and so
sadly, unfortunately, you're not a patient. You're a customer. So
that's the truth.
Don't get me started. Go ahead.
No, me either. And so yes, we were doing all of that and wondering where we're going to get the money to do this and that and the other. And so other than that, it was food for him and whoever he was living with. We'd go to Bilo and buy groceries for we didn't even know who. And it was emotional. It was running around like chickens with our head cut off trying to save him. I would have done anything in this world if anything had saved him.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the funds to send him to $50,000 rehabs in California or Florida or wherever it was. But I don't want to get started on this, but it all comes back to the fact that they have to want to do it. It doesn't matter if you go to the $50,000 rehab in California and put your house up, second mortgage or whatever it does, or you go to Miracle Hill and get yourself together. It's all up to what they do.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Oh, it's all up to them to make the choice. And I know that sounds bad, and I know you're probably thinking, oh, I can't, no. They don't even know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing, and they know it very well. They're very smart, they're cunning and manipulative. My son was wonderful, but he was the best at that. But I kept waiting for him to say, I'm done. And he told me one time, he goes, Mom, you'll never hear me say that. And I thought, okay. And so they have to want it so bad that it changes, that they have to change their life to do it.
Yeah.
You can't make them. You can help. I mean, you can say, okay, you're going to rehab. You're not going to live here anymore. I can't go on with this. That's up to everybody else in their
Set
whole
boundaries.
life. Absolutely. Set boundaries. Don't put up with any craziness. And that's the hard part.
So would you agree then, and I've said this many times on my channel, that you can't buy recovery, you can't, doesn't matter how much money you have, how much the programs are, unless they want it, you're just throwing good money after bad. You can bring it's a cliche, horse to water, make them drink. You can take them and they can complete the classes, they complete the recovery, they come out smelling like a rose. But 90% of them will walk out, and unless they've made the decision in their head that when they're done, they'll go right back out and start using it again. And that's just the fact of recovery. Unfortunately, it has to be a commitment in themselves to make the decision. I'm done. It has to be a switch that turns over. So that was very well said. Thank you. Question number 3. In retrospect, what do you think enabled or perpetuated your son's addiction, and what might you have done differently if you had had the chance? Oh boy.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. Sometimes I think genetics. Maybe my grandmother had a brother that was an alcoholic, and my son was never around him, but I don't know if that filters down. I don't know.
I think a lot of the evidence shows that it is hereditary. Sure.
Is it? Okay. Well,
It can
I think
be.
maybe that could be. I think his social awkwardness might have been he wanted to be friends with the underdogs or whatever you want to say. He had great friends in elementary school, middle school. His friends would go fishing. I knew all their parents. You know, it was a wonderful time. But when he got to where he wanted to delve into the other crowd, if you will, he liked it. He liked the attention. He liked the camaraderie. They were thinking he was awesome, and all this stuff. And so that perpetuated it. Oh, let's do this, and oh, come on, let's do this. You know how teenagers or young adults can be. If I had to do
no idea.
Yes, you do. If I had to do anything different, I think I would learn more about the disease of addiction. I think I would definitely, I went to a support group, and I also continue to go to counseling, but I would learn more about the disease, how they think, that it's not your fault. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. And you just have to continue to love them. I don't know.
That's a good point. Love is the cement that keeps you from going crazy and prevents your spinning out the solar system out into Neverland. The love is what keeps you going. You don't have to like them, and you're not going to like them. You're allowed to not like people you love. That's in the book. That being said, I think that once you realize that you strip away all the what ifs and had I been, it's all comes down to them making a decision if I'm going to keep on doing this or not. You can't force it. You can't push them. You can't bargain. You can't coerce them into doing it. It has to be up to them, because we as human beings cannot control another human being. It's one thing if they were a 4-year-old and they're running through the house with a sharp pair of scissors. That's one thing. That's different. That's a parent taking care of a child. Once they get to a certain age, they're responsible for making their own decisions. So that's where we as serial enablers, and I'm one of the biggest, where you have to start realizing that the more you help, the more you're actually hurting. And that's difficult for us as parents because our whole life has always been about helping people, helping your loved one. And that could also coincide also with a spouse or a brother or a sister who's an addict or an alcoholic. That's what we call them, our loved ones. With the love is what keeps us going, but they can also addiction will use that love against us because it's very, very smart. So
Very smart.
let's see. And again, this is for those of us that just joined us. It's not your fault. This is Jeff. This is Susan, and we're talking a little bit about Susan's journey with addiction and entering into a support group, and where she learned how to take care of herself. Because ultimately, once we've come to the point, we realize that nothing we do is going to change them. We got to take care of ourselves. And then we're talking a little further about a tragedy that her son was actually taken by addiction, sadly. So, but again, this is going to be probably a 3 or 4 part series. We'll keep on doing these as long as people keep on liking and subscribing. So, question number 4: how did your role as an enabler impact your relationship with your son and your own well-being throughout this difficult time?
Okay. Oh my goodness. I was an enabler and didn't even know it because enablers do for their kids or whatever what they should be doing for themselves, but either don't want to or they're too messed up to do it. And so the parent picks that up and says, okay, I'll do it for you. I'll do this for you. I'll do that for you. And the parents running around in the background doing all this stuff, and then the person is either out smoking weed or doing whatever they need to be doing and saying, I need more money or something. I enabled for so long and I thought I was helping. You never want your child to hurt. You don't want them to hurt physically. You don't want them to hurt mentally. You want them to have great friends and to be happy all their entire life, especially if you've seen them be happy before in their life. You don't want anything to happen to them. So being an enabler made me feel good sometimes because I knew, okay, I'm taking care of this. Okay, I'm taking care of this. And then he would get the idea, okay, mom's taking care of this. I can do this again. And I can do this again. As long as I tell her this, she's going to take care of it and I can do this again. And that keeps circling around constantly. They call it the merry-go-round. If you are on the merry-go-round and all this enable, give, manipulate, take for granted, on and on. So I did all that, and it made me feel good. It made him feel really good because he got what he wanted. But when you stop enabling and let them feel the consequences of their choices, that's equally as hard.
Yep.
It's hard when you enable and you don't see a change. You can do that thing again. Insanity, you're enabling, you're giving, you're saying, okay, come home, I'll help you, or go pick them up at 3 a.m, or go buy them food, no matter where to go to the, bad part of town. And I did all that instead of saying, well, you got over there, how are you going to get back? So to me, that was hard.
It's probably the hardest dichotomy is being a parent because our whole lives we spent their butts for the first time and they start crying, take their first breath. Our job is to take care of every need they have, everything, and we do. This whatever they need, we're there for them. And even as they get older, we feel like as parents, especially moms and dads, and we can argue who's more worse at it, but we get to the point where writing the check or giving them the money or paying the bill, and it fixes the problem. Buying the groceries fixes the problem for now until a couple days later when they need more, and then more and more and more and more and more. And you, like you mentioned earlier, Susan, you get to the point where you realize all I'm doing isn't changing anything. You're still going down this path of destruction, and I am perpetuating it because I'm allowing it to happen. Because when I give them $20 to get gas, they're going to use it for something else. It's not you being stupid. Every person watching this channel has done it. Every single person who tuned in who's a codependent or enabler has done it. because we figure if we can't fix the problem, who's going to fix it, right? So that's what we do as codependents and enablers. Don't. It's never something that you did that was you weren't intentionally trying to hurt your loved one. Of course you weren't. But ultimately, when you help somebody perpetuate their use or their lifestyle, giving them money for groceries allows them to now take the money that they have to use for other things. Listen, it's a circle, and it's a vicious circle. We've all done it, and we're not the first. We won't be the last. But if anyone watching this can possibly look at this and go, I need to stop now, and perhaps not go down the same dark, shady pathways that we went down, and have the same pain and feel the same sense of loss that you feel, and maybe this is a beneficial thing. So we're back. It's Jeff. It's not your fault. This is Susan. Hi. And this is part 3 of our 3-part series of Susan's story about her dance with her son's addiction and how her enabling and codependency was very successful, and it was very beneficial. And ultimately, we had a situation where her son passed and from addiction. And this new kid in the block that is everywhere in everything called fentanyl. It is in every drug being manufactured, being used, including marijuana. And unfortunately, it is taking 80,000 lives a year, opioids. And fentanyl is a new kid in the block, and it's virtually undetectable, and it's extremely powerful. And that was ultimately what caused the relationship your son had. And as far as being an enabler, what sort of consequences do you think maybe you could have maybe talked about?
Consequences was a hard thing for me because consequences are something that I never wanted to watch my child do. So when he went to jail the first time for stealing, we bailed him out. We even took him down to the jail, or one of our friends took him down to the jail just to look around there, even before he even went to jail.
Scare straight.
Yeah, it was scared straight or whatever it was. So I thought, oh, good, he'll never do anything to go there. Well, he did. We bailed him out. I think we might have bailed him out twice. Got a bondsman once. It was a whole horrible. We paid money for the bondsman, all that. So anyway, my point is, if your child ever has to go to jail, let them go. That might be their turning point. It was not my son's turning point. He excelled in jail. I think he loved it. He'd see all his buddies in there. They'd have a party, I guess. I don't know. But that was hard for me because I hated to know he was there. So, I'm sending money to the jail, for canteen or whatever, for presents for Christmas or whatever it was. And the whole time he's buying drugs with it in jail. And so, it's just like you can't, it's danged if you do and danged if you don't. And so I'd say consequences are hard, but it is important for you to let them do the consequence according to what their choice was.
You got to pay the piper.
That's right.
You
You
gotta pay the
can't,
piper.
if you keep on bailing them out, you will keep on doing that until you die. And because it takes a toll on your body, it takes a toll on everybody around you. It's a family disease, everybody around you. To let them feel the consequence of the choice they made, whether it was to steal, whether it was to whatever. Most of my son's things were stealing or drug paraphernalia. He never did kill anybody or anything, but
We don't have the right to deny somebody their ability to make mistakes. If we don't allow them to make mistakes, they're not going to learn from their mistakes. And we constantly become the barrier or the buffer to them bumping into the wall and bruising their head or bumping their, I used the adage before, the trapeze artist with the net underneath them. They'll take all kinds of risks. That net's still there. Take the net away, we'll see them be a little more careful. And we as enablers and codependents, we have this ability to constantly be that safety net. If you remember earlier from a different video, I talked earlier about boundaries. Boundaries are there for 2 reasons. They're there to keep your loved one from affecting your life. I'm saying, they have to stay over there. That's the rule. Stay over there and don't affect my life. At the same time, though, any fence has 2 sides. And that also is to keep you from reaching over there and helping and trying to help them and trying to engage in their life. Okay, boundaries are are twofold. So if you set a boundary, keep a boundary. And again, we like to move the fence back and back and back and back and back, or pull it further and further and further closest to us. Before you know it, they're in our backyard. So consequences are the result of actions that they have done, and we have to allow them to face those consequences because that may be the aha moment that makes them go ahead and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to wake up in a jail cell anymore. I don't want to wake up in a hospital because I've overdosed. I don't want to wake up back to a police car. I don't want to wake up laying face down in my own vomit in some strange crack house somewhere. But we can't keep on swooping in and being the savior all the time. They have to make their own mistakes and then abide by the mistakes and live and be held accountable. So that's fantastic. That's a good way of explaining it.
An example of the hardest thing to do about a consequence for me was when my son was living with us in Simpsonville and he had either gotten out of another rehab or something. Anyway, he wanted to hook up with a girl that he was friends with that was all into drugs, but he needed to talk to her because he hadn't seen her in a while and blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, I'm not taking you over there. I know what she's about. Well, what if she comes to get me? I said, I'm not coming to get you then. If she comes to get you, you're on your own.
Mm.
So he goes. She came to get him. I wasn't at home at the time. There was nothing I could do about it. He was 25 maybe. So sure enough, at 7:30 at night, it was kind of mist and rain. He calls, Mom, can you come get me? He was totally under the influence. And I thought, oh, you never want your child to walk in the rain. You don't want him to be uncomfortable. And I felt so bad about it. And I said, no. And I thought, what have I just done? I said, no, I cannot come get you. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm walking down Malden Road. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just need you, please, please, please come get me. No. What did I tell you? I wasn't coming to get you. And then he probably said some explicit words and hung the phone up. So I immediately go to my knees and talk to God. I say, listen, you got this. There's not one thing I can do, but if I don't do what I said I was going to do, he's never going to believe me. He's never going to believe that I mean what I say. So in a minute, the phone rings and it's the police. And they say, oh, well, Miss Ladd or whoever, we have your son here. And I said, yes. And he's under the influence, I said, yes, I know he is. We're going to take him in. And I said, okay, take him in. And they took him to jail. And as a mother, I never wanted any of my, oh, mercy, I never wanted any of my children to go to jail. I've never even been to the jail. I mean, that was awful for me. But at that point, I had to give that back to God because when there's nothing else you can do about it, there's nothing else you can do about it.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that'd be like. I've never been to a jail. I've never had a reason to go to a jail, prison. I've never even been in jail in Monopoly. I always cheat to get out of it. So what Susan's describing there, what she did, which was amazing, was called detaching with love. Is she loved her son, but when he asked for help again and again and again, she finally said, no, I'm not going to come pick you up. No. And does that mean she doesn't love him? Of course it means that she loves him. But she metaphorically gave him a kiss on the cheek, gave him a hug, and then pushed him away and said, figure it out. And addiction will find a way to be fed. Addiction will find a way. It doesn't always have to be us. It'll go to any source to try and get what it wants. And a lot of times we're the easiest ones to go with, the loved ones, the parents, the brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, whatever. We're the easy one to go to. But if we say no, there's a million different options for them out there. They'll figure something out, right? It doesn't always have to be us. We like the fact that if we can help, because then we have a sense of control. We kind of feel like we're somehow controlling the situation. We're trying to control a uncontrollable situation. But that's human nature, man. That's human nature, folks. So don't feel like you're doing anything that no one else out there has ever done before, because we've all done it, right?
Yes.
We've all done it.
Oh,
that's why we're here. That's fantastic information. Detach with love. Look it up in one of my earlier videos. It's a once an enabler or codependent makes a decision to say enough. That's called attaching with love.
And it's not giving up.
No, it's giving it over to him because we can't figure it out. We're addiction smarter than us. It's more conniving. We can't beat it. You can't outsmart it. So surrender the will over to somebody more qualified than you are. And that person, of course, is the Almighty. So you just have to give the faith over to God. So our last question, and then we're going to have a little Q&A session at the end. No, we're not, because we're not live. So let's not. Number 5, with the benefit of hindsight, if we could look back, what advice would you give to other parents who are struggling with a child's addiction, particularly in terms of finding a balance between support and enabling? Get your pad and paper out, all your parents out there, because this is very important.
My advice to you is get in a support group such as AL-ANON. They're all over this city. If you live in this city, I'm sure if you don't live in this city, they're all over wherever you live. Maybe a counselor. That's exactly what I did. I reached out to Al-Anon first because I thought I've got to have somebody to help me and fix my child. And what you learn from that is different ways of coping. You learn how to cope. You learn how to not enable, how to try to let them have their consequence. I feel bad for the parents out there that are dealing with this, but I would say find your resources. There are tons of them. They're everywhere. Find your resources. Find them for your loved one. Write them down. Write down the resources for your loved one, and continue to maybe take them there until they're just not doing anything. My son, we went everywhere there was in Greenville. He would find a way to get out of it. But at least I knew where the resources were. I knew I was trying. I knew that, and also learn about the disease of addiction. It's complicated sometimes, but that doesn't mean just because they have it, I mean, it's sad, but they have a disease, but doesn't mean that they need to walk all over you and you let it happen.
100%. Say it again.
They have a disease of the brain, but it does not mean that you are their
Punching bag.
Yeah, punching bag,
Yeah.
whipping boy, whatever you want to call it.
I've said in many different videos before in the past, just because it's a disease and they're being controlled by the disease does not mean you have to throw your arms around them and go, oh, I forgive you of all the things you've done, and I'm just go ahead and look past everything. No, it's not what we're saying. You need to make sure you keep yourself aware, keep yourself guarded, protect yourself, because ultimately you've got to take care of yourself. You have to take care of you because no one else is going to take care of you. You have to take care of yourself. They have to figure it out. It sounds horrible, but they've got to figure it out. If I could ask a question, and if it's too personal, just to say,
No.
if you had to put a number to it, about approximately how much money do you think you spent on trying to get Ryan help?
Probably.
And I hope her husband's not watching this because
No. My husband, bless his heart, I will have to say my husband was the most logical person. He was right with me, but I'm falling apart, and he's saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. So
he's a great guy.
He was. Yeah. I mean, he is, yes. I would say maybe $25,000 over a period of a long time. But really, we stopped talking about the money. We stopped even thinking about it because we were just handing it over, handing it. Oh, and motel rooms, let me tell you, we'd buy a week at a motel, and Ryan would be working, and he wouldn't pay a cent, not a cent.
Why should he have to?
He didn't have to. And so we would be going bankrupt. It was like $900 or something. And I'm thinking, holy moly. He was making money, working at a landscaping company, $100 every day in cash. And wasn't paying rent.
Worst thing to give an alcoholic guy.
Well, I know, right? And so he went to the street for a little bit and lived on the street.
So it may be even double that. I mean, we know people that spent tens of thousands of close to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We know people that lost their businesses, lost their homes, lost their retirement accounts, IRAs, CDs, everything, because this beast continues to devour everything around it. And as long as you keep on shoveling it in, it'll keep on eating it. But this has been very informative. I wanted to ask you, since we have some time left, let's leave some time left. Is there anything you'd like to say to your Al-Anon family that may be watching this. And you better be
Yes.
watching this. And
Yes.
one of the other resources that we talked about earlier, as far as support enabling, is an amazing YouTube channel called "It's Not Your Fault." Tune in here. No, but what kind of advice would you like to give your friends at Al-Anon, or maybe say something to them because they're all watching right now?
Hi, you guys. I miss you so much. Y'all are my family. Going to get there. It's been a journey for me ever since he passed to try to get my things back together in my mind. But you saved me so many times. I mean, those days I would go to that meeting and could not wait to get there. And I would pour my soul out right there to those people. They understood, they were there to support me, to help me. The meetings just saved my sanity. And that's one of the things we learn is serenity and peace and how you can take care of yourself. And I miss you guys. I love you guys. I hope you're all watching because there's not a day goes by that I don't think about any of you. And even Ryan came to one of those meetings. I brought Ryan, my son, and I brought my other son, and so they know I owe a lot to these meetings and to God for bringing me there.
One thing I can't stress enough is the fact that when you walk in those rooms, they are a magical place, and magic things can happen there. But one thing that you realize is not a judgment area. Everyone there is dealing with the same thing you are. And once you go to enough meetings, you realize, oh, I'm not the only one here that's going through this horrible situation. Everyone here has. Well, then why are they smiling? Why are they laughing? Why are they high fiving and shaking hands? And that's insane. They're laughing. It's what's wrong with these people? Well, some of us have gotten a little farther along in the journey than others have. Because once you've had that epiphany that it's not about them, it's about us, it's about keeping us sane. Well, saner. A little crazy is good. But once you get to the point, you realize the fact that this is not about them. You're not going to these meetings for them. It's a tough pill to swallow because eventually you realize that I'm not getting anything out of this. When am I going to hear the tips? When am I going to hear some advice on how to get my loved one to stop using? Not about that. It's about you. It's about keeping yourself centered, yourself at peace, yourself serene, seeking of the serenity that you desire so badly. They're going to do what they're going to do. All we can do is give it up to God, pray for them, and which is the most powerful tool in the world is prayer. And ultimately, they have to make the choice. And sadly, some choices they make is to use one more time, and that may be the last time.
That's right.
And this is something we talked about at our meetings for years. This may happen. We used to actually be somewhat at peace if Ryan was in jail because we knew he was on the street. He was getting fed. He was getting medical attention. He could get in too much trouble. Ultimately, if they don't change when they get out and they're on their own again, under their own recognizance, there's three things they must change: people, places, and playgrounds. And if they don't change those things, go back to the same friends, the same places they hung out at before, the same wants and desires and behaviors, like Susan said earlier, that's like expecting a different result from the same exact behavior. Of course, it's not going to happen. It's going to be the same thing as always. So I hope some of you got some really good advice out of this, and I hope that maybe this can benefit some people in the long run. We try and do our best. We try and do what we think was in our heart. You're doing the opposite of what has to be done. If it feels good to us, it's probably because it makes us feel good. It's a selfish feeling because we made it right. I'm not going to say we're vain, but to a point we kind of feel like, especially fathers, I know that it was, or as a husband or a son or a daughter, you kind of feel like, I fixed the problem. Look at me. I fixed the problem. On to the next battle. You sharpen your sword and go on to the next battle. When ultimately you have to realize the fact that whenever you take up your sword to defend their problem, they're not ever going to pick up their sword to defend their own problems. So does that make sense? I think it does.
That makes perfect sense.
I think it does. Of course, I'm crazy. So if you like what you heard tonight, please, in the comments of any one of these three videos, please like us, subscribe. And again, the idea of subscriptions is not monetarily. It's not for money. It's that YouTube will then push the content up to more people. More people will see it. This is not entertaining. You're not going to be tuning us in and see such amazing content that I did laughing and joking. That's not what this is about. This is about helping people. So if we can somehow get these subscriptions up and get more content out to people where people can be helped by this, it'll reach more audience. Right now, my audience is very small because YouTube is kind of keeping it down under wraps because no one's subscribing. Subscribe where people see it. Beep it bop it boo.
And
That's
it's
how it
free.
works. And it's
Free.
free. That's the thank you. Yeah, subscription doesn't cost you anything. You click on it and that's it. And whenever I do another video, you'll be ding, you'll be notified. Okay, so that's all we're looking for. It doesn't cost you anything. I mean, think about all the money you spend on Starbucks every day or some other garbage. This is free. This is free help. We always talk about at our meetings. It's the best therapy you can get for $1. It's $2 now. It's crazy. Inflation. This is that crazy shrinkflation. Now, I don't know. Hey, don't get me going. So that being said, thank you so much for your.
I
for your-
loved every
this.
minute
This
of
is
it.
wonderful. This is the kind of thing that people talk about, but you don't ever get a chance to see. I mean, this is the dark underbelly of addiction is loss.
I will say that it's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. The loss of my son was horrible, horrible. But with the support group of Al-Anon, with the love of my God that has carried me through this, and there is nothing else that did but that, I would not be sitting here talking to Jeff. And
Facts.
and I love that because it gives you the idea that every child that's addicted does not die. They don't die. Mine did. He did that last little pill and it killed him. I don't want you to think that your person is going to pass away because that's not true. But you have to put some things in place to take care of yourself.
I'm not speaking for Susan, but I can promise you this from my own heart. Had she not had the tools given to her by her support group, by her readings, by her prayers, by her meditation, had she not had some amazing friends to lean on, I mean, we talked about what if it happens? What are you going to do? And here she is 2 years later, and she's laughing and she's smiling and she's standing up tall and she's enjoying her life, which is allowed. You're allowed to be happy, no matter if the person's here or not, using or not, recovered or not, or in recovery or not. There's no D at the end. You're allowed to live your life and be happy and smile and have fun. This was wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, please comment, leave a subscription, or like, subscribe, whatever all that stuff is. All these different things you do up here. I don't know, it's down here, up there, whatever like that. So thank you again. This was wonderful. And with that, have a good evening. This works if you work it, folks. It works if you work it. Say a prayer for the prayerless, please. The people that no one prays for. There's so many people in this world that no one ever thinks about, no one ever prays for. They all need our prayers. Prayer is the most powerful tool you can do. So with that, I bid you, have fun to do.